Hi class. In this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about thesis statements for your research paper. And we'll talk about the thesis statements kind of generally and the function that they serve in your paper. So every essay that you submit needs to have a thesis statement, whether that's a literary analysis essay, a research paper, a history paper, whatever it is that you're studying, you have to have a thesis statement. And a thesis statement is basically just one sentence. It's usually in your it's in your introduction paragraph. So that's the first paragraph of your essay. And it states your position on whatever topic or issue you're discussing. So essentially, your thesis statement tells your reader what you hold to be true about this issue. And when I say what you know to be true, it's what you know to be true following from the research that you've done. So really, you're basically kind of summarizing your research findings and presenting them in a way to your reader in your research paper. So it's what the research says to be true about the subject. And you're sort of summing that up or saying it in a direct statement of one sentence or so in your introductory paragraph. The thesis can also function as a kind of guideline for the rest of your paper. It usually lists your key points. So just from reading your thesis, or at least your intro, I should have an idea of what the rest of the paper, the main or key points of your essay, are going to be. So that's sort of what a thesis statement serves. It's kind of, again, your argument or your perspective on the issue, a summary of the major research findings that you've come across and are going to be talking about in your essay, and basically an outline of what's to come. So let's take a look at an example here. Okay, so for this example thesis, I'll just read it out loud. University students face a high level of stress, which has been associated with a high level of depression. Sorry, I'm just going to correct this here. So university students face stress, which has been associated with a high level of depression and anxiety. To combat stress-related depression and anxiety in students, research shows that increased physical activity, balanced nutrition, psychological therapies, and medications all have a positive effect. Okay, so in this example, we have a statement. So university students face stress, which has been associated with a high level of depression and anxiety. That's just a statement of fact based on the research that we've read about this topic. That's not really our thesis. That's just a statement of fact. So you can start your thesis by stating a fact regarding the topic. And then I want you to present the more nuanced or specific arguments that are going to be presented in the paper. So that's the second part of this thesis. So this one is actually sort of two sentences put together. And this is the thesis. So to combat stress-related depression and anxiety in students, research shows that increased physical activity, balanced nutrition, psychological therapies, and medications all have a positive effect. So in this thesis, they're saying their position is that the research is showing these four things all have a positive effect on this problem. And that's basically what they're going to go on to address in the rest of their paper. So basically this thesis identifies the problem. In this case, it was stress-related depression in students. And then it presents potential solutions, such as exercise, diet, therapy, and medication. So that's the research findings that this person has found. And in this case, they have 4 points. I know some of you have probably used to finding 3 key points, the 3-part or the 5-paragraph essay with 3 key points. You don't have to necessarily stick to that. I mean, you can if that's your comfort zone, and you're, used to writing the 3-point sort of paragraph essay. But you don't have to sort of stick to that, especially at university level. We can sort of expand that classic template. So you might only have, 2 points, you might have 4 points within that research findings section. In this case, there was 4 different points made, one about exercise, diet, therapy, and medication. So I could imagine the rest of the paper that there'd be a paragraph or a section heading for each one of these key ideas presented in the paper in the research findings. So yeah, this one is basically a problem solution kind of organization. They've identified a problem and then they're gonna present their solutions. That's what they've looked up as their research, and they have 4 key points that they are outlining. Let's take a look at number 2. So this is another thesis. So I'll just read it out loud. So more and more young people are using social media platforms like Instagram and TikTok to keep them connected to others and as a source of entertainment. Yet research shows that social media can be harmful for young adults, leading to increased levels of depression and low self-esteem. Okay, so our topic here is about social media platforms. And the argument here is that they can be harmful. And that's the argument. So social media can be harmful because is kind of how this thesis can be summed up as. So in this case, it gives us 2 main arguments that there's increased levels of depression and low self-esteem associated with young people who use social media. And that's what the research is going to focus on. So yeah, basically this one's just one long sentence rather than 2 separate sentences. And it shows, again, the cause and effect of the topic or the issue, in this case, social media. So let's just break this down. So it identifies the cause or issue, in this case, social media use. And our demographic here was young people. So you might define that or narrow that further, like is it young adults or adolescents, or is it, anybody from the ages of 15 to 25 or whatever. So you could narrow it that way. But it identifies the cause, social media use, and identifies the effects of that. And in this case, the research has shown that it causes depression and low self-esteem. So in this case, I have basically 2 main points that I'm going to support in my essay. One on depression, one on low self-esteem. You might, again, if your paper's longer, you could develop, a more, give some background context on social media use and develop that as a paragraph in your paper. But in this case, you have 2 main arguments or points that you need to make in your essay, and it's to show that social media use leads to depression and that social media use leads to low self-esteem. So that's where your research is going to be used to prove those 2 points. So yeah, that's basically your argument. And it falls under the cause and effect rather than a problem solution as the first one does. So we're going to take a look at one more thesis statement here. This one is longer, as you can see. So I'll just read this one out loud. So while online dating has become a safe, convenient, and popular option for individuals to connect and meet with a wide network of compatible romantic partners, it also comes with some drawbacks that include being overwhelmed with too many options, finding misleading or false profiles, and difficulty of building trust and intimacy in a virtual environment. Overall, online dating is a valuable resource to meet individuals, but it cannot replace face-to-face dating. Okay, so this one is doing a couple of different things. This is one, actually 2 sentences, but one really long sentence and one shorter one. It's setting up a pros and cons kind of setup of the argument. So in this part, we have the positives, the benefits of online dating: safe, convenient, popular, lots of people, and they're compatible. So those are all the good things. And then it gets into the bad things, the negatives, the cons. And so online dating also means being overwhelmed with too many options, fake profiles, and lack of kind of intimacy of virtual connections. So that's the negatives of this issue. And then this statement, this final one here, is basically kind of your thesis. So it's sort of what your take is on this issue. So you've looked at the pros, you've looked at the cons. Now you kind of have to assess where you stand in relation to those two sides of the argument. And in this case, online dating is valuable to meet people, but it cannot replace face-to-face dating. So that's sort of where you fall on this topic, and it's kind of, you see the benefits, but it's not a replacement of the real thing. So that's where you kind of fall in this debate around online dating. And that's your argument. So that's what you will eventually come to in your conclusions on this topic. So basically this thesis breaks down stating the pros, like I said, the advantages of online dating: safe, convenient, many options, compatibility, etc. And then you state the disadvantages: there's too many options, there's fake profiles, lack of intimacy, etc. And then it states your opinion, so what your educated opinion is, having seen and researched both sides of the issue. So you're essentially asked to sort of pick one side over the other, or give a more nuanced, like show the educated position, having looked at both sides of the issue. And you don't necessarily have to pick one side over the other, but you have to sort of give a nuanced position or perspective on the issue, having seen both sides. It's not very good to sort of just stay neutral on an issue in a research paper, but you do want to give a kind of nuanced, specific reasons why you are leaning towards one side over the other. Okay, so those are 3 examples of theses for a research paper. There's the cause and effect kind of setup. There's the problem solution kind of setup. And then there's pros and cons, and where you sort of situate yourself in relation to those arguments. So that's just 3 kinds. I'm sure there's others that you could present, but these are three ways of structuring your argument and presenting your research on a variety of topics.